is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Your votes have been tallied, a build and a couple of hot fixes has been released, and it is time for week one of Friday Night Primetime, and your voting said that you wanted Primetime to be the home of the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship for this season, and you know what? We are going to bring it to you. RaceBot TV streaming live on the iRacing Esports Network. In just a couple of moments, round one of the the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship, live from Watkins, Glen. Do not go away. Welcome back here to RaceBot TV as coverage begins of the opening round of the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship. Randy Cheneth, Hungry Jack, and Hugo Louis bringing you all the action in this season opening race. And well, Hungry, it's going to be an interesting one. These IMSA cars, well, first of all, it's an interesting lineup of cars, sort of a circa 2016, 2015 with that older Daytona Prototype, the GTE cars, and the GT3 cars. Don't see that combination in real life these days, what with LMP2 cars being around. But still a very interesting cars to see on track because GT3 and GTE cars really not that far off in terms of speed.
No, exactly. Thanks, Randy. Indeed, you know, we've got that older, slightly older prototype car, and then we've got the two more modern GT ones. That's going to be some interesting racing, a few categories for us to keep our eyes across of, and hopefully that means we'll get a good battle for the lead somewhere as well.
Qualifying is currently underway, still another minute and a half, but of course if you're not familiar with this championship, you must not do very much road racing, but the format's relatively simple. You have three different classes, the Daytona Prototype, the GTE cars, as well as the GT3 cars. Also, as apparently Hungry spare. So shout outs to the free advertising to the Hungry Jack's food franchise in Australia. But regardless, 3 different classes, 45-minute races, and you are fuel limited in these cars, and everyone will be making a pit stop somewhere around halfway. Obviously, maybe a little bit of strategy, David, in terms of when you come down pit road. Maybe you pit a little early to get out of traffic, or maybe you stay out really, really late. Other than that, it's relatively straightforward sprint race for all these guys.
Exactly, and with some of the GT cars, there's also the kind of thing where when you roll down pit lane, it cools off your tyres a little bit, and so there is sometimes an advantage to getting an undercut even if you don't take a new set of tyres. And traffic, well, traffic will be very, very key for this race, I think, Randy.
Definitely will be the case, and just for those who are unaware, car choices that these individuals will have to choose from. Of course, only one modern, semi-modern Daytona prototype on the sim. We do have the old Pontiac Riley, but of course not going to be using that because that is older than me. Then you have the GTE cars, the Ford GT GTE car, the Porsche, and the Ferrari will be the pickings there. And of course in GT3, Mercedes and Audi only, given the car limit here. So GTE is really going to be the interesting one to watch, what with the different manufacturers.
Yep, and that new to the service, but also new to real life Porsche 911 RSR. Beautiful sounding car, and a relatively popular one as well, but the most recent BOP adjustments have, it's a dirty word to some people, but really brought some of those GTE class cars together.
That is definitely an interesting thing, the BOP adjustments. It's going to be interesting to see how these cars are affected. I can tell you, looking at some of the results from some of the early races that have happened, it seems to be very Ford and very Porsche dominated. But regardless, qualifying has rounded itself out. Cars are beginning to hit the grid. So let's go down your starting grid here for the first time this season in the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship on Friday night prime time. So let's go through it. Daytona Prototypes up first. Fraser Williamson comes home with that pole position with a quick time of 1 minute 36.631. Kim Salvinson will be starting alongside him. Cy Andra and Blake Neck will be on row number 2 with Anarek Andre and David Weiss on row number 3. Gabriel Roos and Luis Chiadello on row number 4 with Marco Asidiacano rounding out your 9-car Daytona Prototype field. Let's get into now your GTE cars. It's going to be Mari Kaida-Soja as well as Thibaut Kazibon. I have not done European names in a while. This is going to be rough on row number 1. Alex Simonik and Yannick Lapchin on row number 2 with Cesar Froner and Antiohola on row number 3. Scott Brazier and Christopher Dambeats on row number 4. Thomas Gibson and Bruno Fontaba on row 5. Barry Morrison and Tony Repisard on row number 6. Kevin Siggy and Theodore Rodriguez on row 7 there, with Bradley Haley and Lewis Goodway on row number 8. Luis Campos and Thorin Goldesich is going to be on your pole position in the GT3 machines, with Michael Avodka and Stephen Engels on that second row. James McRitchie and Wim Stockman making up the third row with Alejandro Farino and Abel Aprecio starting just behind, with Michael Bush, Juan Gimenez, Shane Burke, Yannick Michael, and Roberto Rodriguez rounding out your GT3 field. David, I think I butchered just about every name possible.
Oh, well, yeah, it's a shame that, but I guess it's difficult for us, but we need to try to be respectful to all of the different nationalities and cultures that make up this vibrant series and the iRacing service. That being on the internet allows all of these people from all different places in the world, and I think we've got so many continents and time zones represented here just in this race that it's
just in this
it's a blessing and a curse.
Just in this broadcast feed. Producer in Brazil, lead commentator in Southern California, and Mr. David Haynes, of course, in Australia. Of course, nothing interesting happens in Australia. Nothing interesting happens in the U.S. either. But there is something interesting happening in Germany this weekend, of course. Sim Racing Expo, which people from RaceSpot are there. I know Jake Sperry is there. I believe Paul Smith and Will Vincent have gone as well, as a number of other people. But that's going to actually have an interesting effect on this race, Dave, because really a huge number of the sort of influential drivers that we usually expect to see in this series are at the Nürburgring right now and not racing in this. So we're going to have probably a list of names in this race that probably will struggle to make top split for the rest of the season.
So while the cat's away, some of these mice will play, and this is an opportunity for some of these guys then to get into a broadcast race, maybe get some good points, you know, and that's racing, is taking every opportunity that's given to you.
Yep, that definitely is. They work themselves through the carousel. We're running the full boot layout here, so they'll have the chicane that leads into the quick carousel and then down into the hill. Of course, the guys that, I think if you help my memory here, David, I think you guys at Huge Ass, I know obviously you would not have been involved. You ran a little MX-5 around here for a little club endurance race here about 6 months ago, if memory serves.
A bit more recently than that. It would have been in June or July, but that's right. We brought out our number 337. It's a 92 Mazda Miata /MX-5, and we did all right for ourselves around here for 2 7-hour races.
Number 337, so it's only Eat and not Leet.
It's also not Yeet.
Yeah, that's also true. The field runs their way down towards the end, nearing the end of the lap. Frazier, of course, in that Team Bushfink car, I think super excited to be starting himself on pole. It'll be interesting to see what Kim Salvinson can do. Only about a 1/10.5 off in the qualifying. Things a little bit further spread out in the GTE field in terms of qualifying. Matikaita Soja, full 4/10 of a second, pretty much ahead of Thibault. And then you get further down the field, Alex Simonek is actually really close to Thibault, but Yannick Lamchin, full half-second off the pole, and it just gets bigger and bigger from there. Things a little bit tighter though in your GT3 field. Lucas Campos and Soren are only about 0.02 of a second separated in their Mercedes. Michael Vodka very close to the pole time as well. Your top three separated by 0.2. Stephen Engel is just a couple tenths further back, and then James McRitchie only a tenth further. So the GT3 field might be the tightest one, but they're coming off the final corner in the Daytona Prototypes. Team Bushfink and Fraser Williamson in command of the field, and we wait and we wait, and we are green as Fraser picks up the throttle. 45 minutes on the clock here at Watkins Glen as the DPs scream into turn one. I see the GTE field. They got themselves strolling off at a pretty hectic pace as well as they come screaming down the front straightaway. As the GT3 cars, they're going as well as they're not even on the front straight yet.
Yep, lots of spacing between the different classes. That's good to get a clean start. We've got a pretty clean start in the Daytona Prototypes, and now the GT3s have gone, and they're all single file as they cross the start finish line.
Oh, big incident, big incident. I think that's a geodesic Daytona Prototype. Off at the bus stop, that's Blake Knecht. First time going through that chicane. It's so quick and it can cause problems, and this may have been trouble with a teammate. No, it was not actually. He got hit, I think, from Loic Guardello into that first chicane for the first time, and that's going to be huge problems for him. Probably be his day done. That has stacked up a number of the DP cars, though. Some of them now have some aero damage, some do not. GTE cars, excuse me. They look to be mostly clean, going down through the boot section of the racetrack for the first time. And the GT3 cars, they're come circulating through the carousel. I think they're all pretty much line and stern as well.
Wow, that was very tough for Blake Knecht, who's gotten up very early this morning in Australia to be in this race. I can tell you that with a lot of confidence. It just looks like the driver behind him has been right up underneath his bumper and missed their braking zone.
That's very easy to do here, especially at Watkins Glen, because you get so much slipstream down that long straightaway. You go up the S's, of course. You really are getting slipstream from turn one all the way to the braking zone. I do see a Ford GTE car on pit road as well, but I think that driver may have actually missed the grid as Fraser Williamson completes lap one, and he has himself casually a 1.6 second lead over Kim Salvinson. So for Fraser Williamson, that little stack up in the back of the field with some of the quicker DPs, pretty much the dream situation for him. He's out in the lead and already broken the draft.
Yeah, and so the guys taking advantage of that, and Eric Andre up 2 spots, David Weiss up 2 spots, up 3 is Loic Guardello. Sai Ondra losing 3 spots, so we're probably not going to see a GIF of this on Reddit.
I definitely wish we did see a GIF of this on Reddit as the GTE cars are going to be screaming out now up the hill and down towards that chicane. Matikaita Soja leading the way from Cesar Froner. And I can already tell you right now, David, just by looking at the car choices here, We went from a very Porsche and Ferrari dominated list of cars to now a very Ford and Porsche dominated list of cars. So the balance of performance may be swinging a little bit too far out of favor of that 488 GT3, but at the same time, I've been a proponent for a while that this Ford has just simply put not been a very, not been the optimal car whatsoever. If anything, been the most unoptimal car of all the ones we have to choose from. So it's good to see some changes come in, but you never like to see it swing too hard the other way. That said, the Ford and the Porsche seem, just in these opening couple laps, just based on the qualifying times at least, not to be too spread out amongst one another. We have a couple Fords up front, then a couple Porsches. It seems to be a decent mix here up and down the field, at least of those two manufacturers.
Yeah, and those two Fords up front aren't quite getting away from third place Yannick Lapchin, who is a very new signing to Altus Esports, the Australian-based team, signing, I think he was their first European driver. So that's interesting to see him out in this race and driving that Porsche, which I think was the Ferrari is what Altus Esports drove at Le Mans. So maybe new drivers, new tastes. It's a good-looking car, but those Fords are pulling a tiny gap on him that last lap.
Yeah, they definitely did just a little bit. Yannick, that last trip around the racetrack, 140.8 versus Caesar in second, 140.4. And Matt, even quicker than that, did a 140.0. So 0.8 of a second off your race leader was that new Altus Esports driver. We're going to check in with the GT3 field. Leaders heading up now through the S's and towards the back straightaway. Lucas Campos has stretched his legs away from the field. The fight is on for second, though, between Sorensen and Michael. Can't try to even attempt to say those last names in action because it will not end well as they're going to go side by side in towards the bus stop. Both lanes can potentially work here depending on how drivers use them, and it's going to be the inside line that benefits here, but that 30 car pushes a little bit wide on the grass. He should get a slowdown for that, and that should give the advantage to that number 30, I believe, as they work their way through the carousel and now down towards the boot. Just pushed a little bit too hard on the braking zone. Actually, what's the 30 car? Excuse me. That is the one that pushed a little bit too hard into the grass, David, and trying to fight for one position. He ends up losing two, potentially even three now, as James McRitchie is stacked up right behind him as they run through the toe of the boot.
Yeah, Stefan Engels in that Audi just taking what was given to him. Yes, I'll jump up through here. Good move by him, in fact, to get up into third place.
Doing a good job to get himself up here into P3. This is one of the things you need to do is you need to take the opportunities you are given. You need to pounce on them. The field works its way through. We do have one Porsche at the tail end of the field that seems to be involved in, had been involved in an incident. That was Bruno Fontalba, way down the order with a bent rear wing, so things not going the way he would definitely like. Keeping an eye on the Daytona Prototypes, though. So 2.6 second lead for Fraser Williamson, so he's casually eked out another second since the last time he saw him, and we don't really have too many close fights in this DP field, at least near the front. At the very back of it, though, Lloyd Guidarello, Marco Sidiacano, and Gabriel Ruth, they're all tucked under each other here as they stream down towards the toe of the boot, all within a second.
Yep, throw a blanket over those three. This is not quite where the passes usually happen in this sort of more technical section of the track, but anything is possible if you get a good run out of the heel, maybe. Normally, into the first corner, into the bus stop is where we see overtakes happen. But, oh, bit of a slide there for Loic.
Little one, but did a good job to hold that. And actually, I think something happened up out in front because these two have gotten stacked up. David Weiss and Cyandra as well. So we now have a couple different fights here potentially happening in your Daytona Prototype field, of course, in the sort of mid-pack. Talking about strategy, not tragedy. It's going to be somewhere around probably lap 17, lap 18. I think we expect people coming down pit road in most of these classes. Of course, there could be a few lap differences, Dave, due to the different categories having slightly different fuel loads, but somewhere around halfway, and we're going to be just under a 30-lap race for everyone.
Yep, a fuel restriction, meaning that these guys are going to have to pit at some point, but I think it's still too early for that pit window to be open. They're going side by side here into the bus stop. Loic still on the inside there, I think. Just manages to cut off Marco
Marco Acidiacano.
Acidiacano, there we go. See, once you hear it, it's easy. When you're reading it on the timing screen, it's kind of difficult. But this is a good battle that's got going on.
Place, Caesar in the GTE field going through the bus stop chicane. I think just got a little bit loose. Think caught the ire of maybe the famous Ford GT suspension. Very stiff car when you have to the way you have to run it, and he just clipped that curb a little bit wrong. And well, his suspension setup did not like that one bit. Spat him out onto the grass. He luckily avoided clobbering the wall, but he has lost a ton of positions and goes from P2, I think, back down to about P7.
Yeah, and then that did not look pretty when he came over that access road, the little bump out there in the grass. But that's one of the difficult parts of this circuit, is that bus stop and the curbs there. Some of these lower running cars, it's very easy to bottom out and lose control there.
I mean, not only just lower running, but the Ford is one of those cars that it technically doesn't have springs like the typical GT car does. The Ferrari, for example, is pretty much more standardly sprung with actual springs. Same with, I believe, with the Porsche. The Ford has straight up torsion bars, which is more what you get with a prototype or an open wheel car. And that's part of the reason this car really struggles over some rougher parts of the circuits, and why coming over those bumps, if you don't have that car perfectly set up, it can be very easy to just clip a curb just wrong and have that car just flat out come out from underneath you just because it is so much stiffer. That says Caesar seems pretty confident with the car over the bump, the way he just clipped that one in turn one. Took a nice little bite out of that.
Yeah, that suspension, the work of Multimatic, who are also involved in building prototypes. So they've got some interesting things on that Ford GT, and I know some people, when it came out, were a bit worried about, homologation specials. But I think it's a good car to have in GT racing, not a bad car to look at, and it's being relatively competitive here today as well.
Yeah, it is definitely seen that way, as Matty Soja now has been gifted a pretty substantial lead over Yannick Option in that second spot. Scott Rader's doing a good job, though. That team Bushfink Porsche keeping himself now in P3. That means we have a Bushfink car leading in the Daytona Prototype field and one currently on the podium as well in your GTE field, as just keeping tabs with these fights. We were watching side by side here with Marco Acidiacano through the last sector of the racetrack, and he's actually going to get forced off wide onto the grass, and he's going to go from leading this little three-car train to being at the tail of it. Let's see what exactly happened here, because I'm not sure if that was Marco's fault or not, but I believe there might have been a little bit of contact through that penultimate corner. Actually, watching it back, doesn't look like there was at all. Marco just flat out overcooked the corner and pushed himself out wide.
Yeah, he just got pushed out wide a little bit, I think, was Loic Guiardo. But that was all just fair, pretty close racing, I think, and exciting to have those three guys there. Seem closely enough matched, the draft playing enough of an effect that, again, they go too wide into the bus stop.
Yeah, I mean, it is, one of those, it is one of the unfortunate things about Watkins, or one of the fortunate things, rather, about Watkins Glen. You have a few sectors in the racetrack which, in these faster GT cars and prototypes, you can go side by side. Like, you can screen through the S's 2x2. Turn one, you can run a couple different lines, just the way it's profiled and the way you carry speed up the hill. But you also have other points in the racetrack where you just almost flat out have to be single file, such as through especially that penultimate corner and the final corner. Not really that great for side by side racing unless you're throwing a bit of a dive bomb, as Lewis Goodway is off the racetrack.
Yeah, indeed, that was a fierce battle there in our GTE field, and it's not worked out for Lewis Goodway right there. They're going 2x2 into the bus stop, and unfortunately, the track narrows there, and someone's got to give. And that looks like it might have been a bit of side-to-side contact that forced him out there.
A little bit of contact, and I think Lewis may have found the wall just a little bit, so that's going to be unfortunate for him. Overall, in terms of the potential damage he has on that, we'll have to wait and see. Of course, it is a very quick race, so not a lot of time to potentially rebuild and bring that gap back down and in. But talking about gap, 5 seconds pretty much is what Matty Soja has over the rest of the field in that Vendaball Sim Racing Ford GTE car. Yannick Lopchin currently still in second in that Altus Esports machine, and then settling into third, of course, is Scott Brazier. Couple little gaggles a little bit deeper in this field, of course, as well. You have Christopher Diambietz, as well as Thomas Gibson and Barry Morrison. And David, the tricky thing about having these tricky names, that you say one name all tricky like Diambietz, and then you see Thomas Gibson, and then you still manage to almost mess that one up as well. And by you, I mean me.
Oh, not perfect either. Yeah, it was a really close battle that we did see on screen, and then I think Cyril Rodriguez was the winner of that, ahead of Kevin Siggy, ahead of Bradley Haley, and then Lewis Goodway has dropped quite a bit further back. He might be missing some straight line speed out of that car now. Cyril Rodriguez, I think that's Redface Racing, French team, and they're doing rather well with Cyril Rodriguez, but the other driver, Bruno Fontalba, yeah, well, he got that rear wing damage rather early in the race. He's still circulating out there, but he is on the same lap as the leaders in GTE, but he's a bit further back from them.
And he's just about a light year ahead. He's 4 seconds off the next car, which is Lewis Goodway. But when you talk about getting to the pack, he's 10 seconds back from Bradley Haley, which is where the main train of cars really somewhat starts. Let's check out your GT3 field, though, as there's a 3-car field here. And oh, Steven Engel's a 20 machine. He goes a little bit wide at the bus stop chicane, and I think gets a slowdown, and that allows the number 30, Sorensen Kolzech, to be able to get that move done, and James McRitchie is going to be able to slip through as well. So as quickly and as easily as he got that podium position coming off a mistake, David, he just made a mistake and gave it right back and fell right back to where he was, which is P5.
Yeah, Watkins Glen giveth, Watkins Glen taketh away. You've got to have your wits about you at all times, especially when the battle is as fierce as it is here in GT3. I've been looking on my timing screen, and our leader in this category, Lucas Campos, he's just involved in the battle with Michael Avdoka there, and neither of them can get away from each other, it seems. Both in that Mercedes-AMG GT3, which is a pretty popular choice, although, you know, back there in 5th is an Audi. But yeah, these two guys have been running line astern for a few laps now. Nothing crazy going on, but you know, that's a fierce battle. They'll be thinking about pit strategy, won't they, Randy? If they're running that close, we're now 15 minutes in, the pit window is almost open.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue the pit window probably opens within the next lap or two, and Lucas Campos pushes a little bit wide on the exit of turn 1, and that is significant because you do actually scrub speed by doing that. It's not actually quicker to run out that super wide line, and that's going to allow Michael to get a run coming down the S's. Is he actually going to go for this going into the bus stop? He's been relatively patient there. He has the run, he has the draft, but he's not going to go for it, lifts out of it, and this is sort of what you're talking about, David, because it's not, when you're talking about pit strategy here, it's not going to be in terms of tires, and it's not going to be necessarily in terms of short stopping. It's literally just the pit strategy here is if you can save some fuel and get as little fuel filled during that pit stop as you can. You know, if you save a second, 2 seconds down on pit road, that's a huge amount of time in this race when you're talking pit strategy. When you figure most people are only going to be in the box probably about 15, 16 seconds.
Yeah, that was exactly my thoughts when I saw Michael Avdoka right in the draft there, closing up, choosing to roll out of the throttle a little bit. I thought, you know, now he looks to maybe make an overtake. Was there a little bump there potentially? But one of the only real strategy calls you can make is to save a little bit of fuel in the truck. He flashes the headlights, he's not happy, but save a little bit of fuel and hope you can shorten your stop by a second or so. And that is the jump you can make. Obviously, that kind of thought's gone out the window because Michael Avdoka is trying to make a move and he's not happy about Lucas Campos moving across maybe a little late to defend that position into the heel.
Yeah, I mean, it is just a little over-aggressive maybe somewhat for Michael as they run down in towards turn 1 once again. They have themselves a nice little gap. That third place running car, about 3 seconds, actually closer to 2 of Soren and Kolzech. So they can fight with each other a little bit. However, David, if they fight with each other too much, they suddenly potentially open the door for that 30 car to start getting a little sniff of the draft. And here at Watkins Glen, when you give someone a little sniff, it doesn't take long for them to get a big sort of huff of it, and they can just start reeling you in lap on lap because of it. Through the bus stop, they stay single file again.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen a little bit further back in the GT3 class that it's not hard to make a little mistake, find yourself offline and have a whole train of cars come steaming through. So if Lucas Campos and Michael Avdoka fight each other too hard and they end up back here with these other 3 guys, someone like Lucas Campos who's leading could find himself shuffled back to 5th place. So they've got to be careful and they've got to play nice, at least for the moment that he's leading to.
And I definitely think that would be the smart choice. We're just going to check back in with GTE. Looking at this fight between Thomas Gibson and Barry Morrison. And you also have just out front Christopher Danby. Another fight that's relatively close, but gloves really haven't come off yet. We still have that second place battle has really spread itself out a lot, I think, the last 4 or 5 laps here, David. Yannick Roskin and Scott Frazier. They were nose to tail for about the first 5 to 6 laps, but the last 5 to 6 laps sort of opened up to about 10 or so car lengths. And I think, you know, pretty much this is the definition of GTE and the Daytona Prototype field right now. Up and down those fields, it's pretty much just nice little gaps for everyone and plenty of clean air.
Yeah, sometimes what happens in a race like this is it spreads out just a little bit and then closes back up after the pit stops. So Thomas Gibson leading Barry Morrison here, and Barry Morrison's closed up just a couple car lengths through the what that would have been through the laces, and now they head out of the toe down towards the heel. It is close and just half a car width. Barry Morrison is looking to the inside there. No move to be made, but he's you know, showing the nose, trying to get in the mirrors and in the head of the driver in front. That could get spicy.
Definitely could. Could either force a mistake either on the car in front, or at the same time, we've already seen once in this race, David, the driver, you know, misses braking zone, trying to be a little over aggressive. Of course, that was on the opening lap in your Daytona Prototype field. Blake Neck was the sort of unfortunate casualty in that one. Really no fault of his own whatsoever. So maybe being a little bit patient here is Barry Morrison. What was a pit stop here to go here in about the next 5 to 6 laps. Currently working 12. We're expecting this race to be 26, 27, maybe 28 laps. So looking at the weather, actually we might just get 28. It is a relatively, you know, kind of quick session, partly cloudy, 80-degree Fahrenheit track temp. We could see a pretty quick race here, and they could stretch it out to that next lap potentially. And if they do, it'd be a bit of a nightmare situation, because then if you fuel the car for 27 laps, you know, I've seen people fuel the car for 27 and that race go that 1 lap extra.
Yep, and it's worse when that happens at somewhere like the Nürburgring with a huge long lap. But here, this isn't a particularly short lap either at Watkins Glen. You know, if you were in a really close battle, you'd be chewing your fingernails down doing that strategy, saying, you know, what's my risk, what's my reward of taking the extra lap of fuel or not? Obviously, this being what will be probably the highest strength of field in that prototype class this week, we've got the fastest drivers in those Daytona Prototypes. If there's any race, it's going to go 1 lap longer. This might just be it.
And one thing that has been happening that we have missed, the Daytona Prototypes have already gone through. Your leaders have gone through the GT3 field. Frazier Williamson has just gotten himself out in front of Lucas Campos. That second place running Daytona Prototype still needs to come through, and that just sort of gives you an idea on what the gap. Oh, actually, Kim Salvinson, second place in DP, has just had an issue down at the bus stop. What happened to Kim? I missed this while I was looking at Frazier, but he did it all by himself coming out of the bus stop. And what in the world happened? I think he caught that second left-hand corner, David. I think he just did the same thing, you know, similar to what we saw earlier. Actually, no, it was the first left-hander. That first left-hander is what got the car initially sort of hopping, and that got the car sideways. And when he hit that second set of curves on the left-hand side, that pretty much just sealed the deal and threw that Team Vikings car into that outside wall.
Yeah, indeed. You know, he's just got a lot of steering angle in, a lot of load in the suspension as he's jumped that curb. And, you know, sometimes you need to straighten up the steering a little bit more as you come over the curbs. And now he finds himself in this battle, doesn't he?
And there's another fight happening as well. P2 in the Daytona Prototypes, and Eric Andre and Cy Andra, they just see the door open for themselves to have the second step on the podium, and they're going to fight for it. Race Clutch, represented by Eric Andre, and Cy Andra representing his team as well, as they scream through turn 1. Cy is one of the more aggressive drivers on the sim. Knows how to show the nose. He's done a lot of different sorts of open wheel driving. He knows when an opportunity presents itself how to potentially pounce on it, and I think he might make a move down in towards the bus stop. He's tucking under the rear wing right here of an Eric Andre. Is he going to poke out? He pokes out to driver's left. Will he be able to make the move? He's going to push it on the brakes, but no, not going to quite be able to get there. Is Cyandra, and that's going to allow an Eric to really hold on to that second spot, and actually, if anything, open up a slight gap here that could help, or excuse me, could hurt Cy. Of trying to keep that gap there, as we're about 3 to 4 laps out from the pit stop cycle.
Yep, see these guys getting punchy. So that means it must be pit stop time soon enough. Cy Andre just couldn't get enough of an overlap.
I just couldn't bring that nose far enough out in front. Like
and a contact back in the further back in the DP field. What was that?
Marco City.
Yeah, Marco. Yeah, we're going to get a replay of that one indeed. So he's just had some gone wide through the lace. What was that? Blake Neck potentially? Who was that in the geodesic racing car that was sideways across the track?
David Weiss. David Weiss is who it was. Going through, going down the first segment of the boot, trying to see what actually happened to him. I think he had a run-in with a GT3 car, and that's exactly what happened. And David kind of tried to cut that corner a little bit tight. I'm not sure why he tried to cut the exit so tight, but he did so just as Juan Gimenez in that GT3 car started to track out a little bit, and they just both got into each other. And, well, unfortunately for the Daytona Prototype, he got the worst end of it. A couple of cars got stacked up in there as well. Lewis Goodway got a piece of that as well. Of course, he was involved in an incident earlier on, so somewhat fortunately we don't lose one of our leaders there, but still a big incident. So I think we do have pit stops happening here, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe the number 30 car of Soren.
Well, Randy,
Kovac.
sorry, on our screen right now is the battle for Daytona Prototype, and second is on our field right now as they try to come through the leaders in GT3. So we've got two fierce battles happening right here in the one place on track. They come down towards the laces, which is where we just saw that action, and the Daytona Prototypes split the GT3 cars, and Cy Andre, I think, gets through.
I'm not sure what Eric Andre was even thinking there, thinking that right side would ever be open. Cyandra takes the second spot, but an Eric Andre, thankfully he backed out of that because he had half a mind to put half the car on the grass on that little straightaway when there was about 1,000,000 light years on the left-hand side of open asphalt he could have taken to. I think trying to use that GT3 car as a pick when Cy was already too far ahead for that to even be relevant. So an Eric, that race clutch group, of course, they do sort of come from the rallycross background here, David. So they know how to be, they know to be aggressive. It's sort of in their blood, in their DNA of that team. That would have been a little bit over the top as that fight in GT3 is still taking place, as we have had one of the GT3 quote-unquote leaders come down pit road. It was that 30 car we saw come and make a scheduled stop. So pit road sequence officially open. I see another car coming down pit road in the background. Who is that? That's actually Kim Salvinson, P4 in our Daytona Prototype 5.
Yep, with 20 minutes to go, I think it's well and truly pit stop time for a lot of these guys. And it's a sort of a tiny bit of a lull in the hostilities. And then once they're out, well, what a sprint to the finish. But it's back on for second place, because of course it is.
Because of course it is. They're going to be wheel to wheel. It's going to be Cyandra who loses out this time in the bus stop chicane. What in the world happened this time? Cy had the inside line, and I think an Eric, you know what? I think that move was on. That's a good move from an Eric Andre. He had the line, and that's what I'm talking about in terms of being able to run that outside groove. A little bit of contact through the center means Cyandra gets forced off wide, unfortunately, and that's going to somewhat kill that second place fight for a little bit, David, because now Cy, with the result, I think, of a couple of those moments in traffic, there's a bit of damage on the front of that Daytona Prototype. Because of that, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to have the top speed to reel an Eric back in.
Yeah, a few bits on that car, not looking quite so pretty. Now, none of them are structural in a tube frame prototype like this, but, you know, those little bits, they're not how the design is intended. So normally, they don't give you more downforce and less drag. Normally, it's the other way around.
Yep, that's definitely the situation. Just keeping tabs.
Daytona Prototype leader is on the pit lane now.
Yep, so
Fraser Williamson
for them. Cyandra stays out another lap. This could be interesting. And Eric Andre, he came down pit road, and I saw him. He was pretty hot at the pit road entry. You want to see if maybe he didn't get caught speeding somehow, because he was very, very close, I think, with the way that he was locked up. Where does it? No, he should be okay, I think, but he was very flamboyant bringing that thing on towards pit road. Fraser Williamson's already off and away. But Cyandra going this extra lap, he can save that little bit of fuel. He might be able to just jump that race clutch number 6 machine.
Yeah, all of these guys, Fraser Williamson and Eric Andre, those guys, doing about 11 and a half second stops. So I guess when Cyandra comes down the lane, he'll need to cut that down by a second or so if he wants that to have any effect.
We'll have to wait and see. I also believe we've had our leader come, nope, I lied. He took a very, very weird exit coming off turn 1, I think, due to traffic, but pit road is now a very busy place. We have GT3 cars cycling off. We have GTE cars on pit road as well. So expect all of the relevant drivers to come down pit road pretty much at any point. Still, of course, Matty Soja dominating this GTE field out pretty much 10 seconds or so clear. A lot of our fights have pretty much gotten spread out, but one of them is just forming back up. And I think Lucas Campos just came off of pit road, and he has found that 30 machine of Soren Koldezej, as well as James McRitchie. I believe all of these cars have already pit, and indeed they have. So this is a 3-car scrap for what I believe will be P2 in class.
Yeah, we have to wait and see where Michael Avdoka comes out, but these guys might effectively well be 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And that gap that, pardon me, Lucas Campos had over these other two, it's evaporated somewhat, and now they're as close as they've ever been. Soren Koldezej is showing the nose a little bit to Lucas Campos, saying, I'm here in this pink Force India BWT coloured car.
Well, talking about that lead, it's important to remember that 30 car was the first one to come down pit road. He came down pit road pretty much right at the opening of the pit sequence. By the way, GT3 leader currently of Michael Avdoka is on pit road. So as these guys come to the final corner, they're essentially going to be racing that number 26, who's already out from the box and driving towards the pit exit. He's coming up to the cones now. Limiter will be released. Can Campos get there? They're hitting the apex of turn 1, and they are going to hop right in front of him. Where were he cycled through, though? It's going to be side by side, actually. I thought he was going to be clear, but they are going to have those drivers that were coming through turn 1 should have the momentum advantage. That Daytona Prototype is really hurting things, as we might have a little bit of teamwork here. No, I take that back. That's an LDLC car, not a Zenith one, very similarly colored. We have a 4-way scrap for the win in GT3 as they're going to show the nose into the bus stop chicane, and the 26 car Michael Avdoka doesn't give the line, and he ends up spun off on the outside of the bus stop.
There was such a narrow window for Lucas Campos to stick his nose in there. You felt that that was probably always going to happen, unfortunately. Just that contact front to rear between those two has put him around. I'm not sure that was on from Lucas Campos.
I think it was. I'm not going to lie. I like the move from Lucas Campos. A lot of sim racers like to have this sort of attitude of, if I don't think you're alongside enough, I'm just going to turn in no matter what. And I think it sort of kills the availability for aggressive racing. I think that was a good move by Lucas Campos, and Sorensen's going to show the nose as well. I think that I think we needed to see that driver, who's Michael Avdoka, really give the line there, because I think Campos was there as this race lead is still so aggressive for GT3.
Yeah, indeed. This is a really close battle, and like we said, now these three are 1, 2, and 3, and Lucas Campos is only just holding on to it. We saw even before that Fitzstein Motorsports car came out of the pits that Soren was looking to get past Lucas Campos, and now that it's for the lead, I think he's even more determined.
Yeah, he definitely is, as they go screaming down towards turn 1. We have roughly 10 laps remaining, of course, in this race, but screaming now up the S's, this now 3-way scrap in GT3, all a bunch of Mercedes. We of course had the 4th one, which is got taken out of that incident. Lynn Stockman's running P4 in the sole Audi that's currently in the top 5, with Abel Aparicio running in 5th. And actually, what has happened? We lost Steven Engels. I'm not sure what happened to him. I think we may have missed that incident. Oh, we got one of the leaders off in the grass here. The Zenith car, the 37 of Lucas Campos. Big mistake now down at the bus stop chicane. What happened this time? I think he just got the curb awkwardly, and I think that's the 3rd or 4th car now we've seen make that mistake.
Yep, again, steering all loaded up, hits that 2nd curb, and it spits him sideways. He's lucky to get away with that one without too much damage. The replay on your screen right now. Side by side they go in, and I think that was rather clever of Soren Koldezej to just back out of that one. Here's our rallycross slow-mo, the Bucking Bull Mercedes. All 4 wheels in the air, nose down first. Great replay. Thank you there, Hugo, in the production booth. And yeah, that was an exciting moment for him, but maybe not the one that Lucas Campos wanted as he gets cycled back down to 3rd place.
I think the YouTube chat will be screaming karma, as I'm sure they're not a bunch of Lucas Campos fans right now after that incident down at the bus stop. I still am, though. that Dennis machine, is still in this fight and is going to be giving pursuit to these top two. And I have to say, I still like Campo's chances because these top two are not going to play nice with each other in some upcoming laps. Just keeping tabs on some of the other classes, though. Fraser Williamson is casually dominating the Daytona Prototype field with roughly an 18.3 second lead. And Eric Andre is settled in towards P3, so we might see this fight pick back up between Syandra and an Eric Andre here shortly. GTE field is currently Matty Kaidasoja, who leads by about 5 seconds over Scott Brazier. Yannick Lampkin, not very far back in that third spot, so we might just get a fight for second. Barry Morrison and Christopher Dambietz, they are fighting it out for P4 and a P5. Thomas Gibson not far back as well. And of course in GT3, been watching these 2, 3, 4 cars fight for a while. We do have a fight a little bit further behind between Wim Stockmans and Abel Aparicio, fighting for P4 and 5. So a good number of scraps up and down the field, David, in a race that looked to be somewhat spreading out a little bit as we got to about 15, 16 laps in. The pit stop sequence has really stacked these fights back up.
Yeah, exactly. I'm interested for P2 and P3 in GTE between the number 5 and number 11 cars, Scott Brazier and Yannick Lampkin. That could be a very interesting one.
It definitely could be, as this fight ends up potentially picking itself up. Yannick's not close enough to really make a move right now. I think he might need a little bit of help with the traffic, as close as they have been lap on lap. But I think the big fight to watch is going to have to be this one for the GT3 lead, because of course they both have the slipstream and they've been sort of swapping lap times and swapping punches back and forth with one another. Of course they had a couple other cars they were fighting with as well, but I think wisely these two, Dave, they sort of settled it down after those other two cars made their mistakes and sort of dropped back out of the fight. They sort of just stayed single file. We've not seen James McRitchie really show the nose. So they've really kind of settled it down, and I think that's smart, especially with Lucas Campos, who is known to be aggressive, as we've already seen in this race. You don't want to start fighting and let him back into this thing.
My thoughts too, Randy, that James McRitchie's just been, a little bit patient, a little bit quiet, sat there working his way down to the bottom of his box of popcorn. And, Lucas Campos and some of the other guys around have made some bold moves, maybe potentially made some mistakes. And he's just sat there, and now he's in second place. He's got 10 minutes to go. He's in the exciting position that he can make a move, and he can decide when, and he can be patient if he wants to, or he could strike now if it suited him. He just needs to maybe wait for a mistake or any chink in the armor of Saron Kolodzic ahead of him, and could be his.
Of course, there is still the potential for traffic to cycle its way through, and just as I say that, Matty Kaidasoja is currently swarming his way through GT3 traffic. You see Wim Stockman's on screen right now, and that's not very far back from this fight for the race lead in GT3. So for James McRitchie, if he's trying to hope to maybe use one of these quicker cars as a pick, he might just get the opportunity to do so. And not only that, but Fraser Williamson in the DP field, not too far back whatsoever as well, as he's currently working in towards the toe section of the boot. A little bit further back from Matty, but of course the Daytona Prototypes a few seconds quicker than those GTE cars. So for James, well, at least one, I think, Matty Kaidasoja, I think, will definitely get to this lead fight in the GT3 field, and potentially a second bullet to use of Fraser Williamson as well.
Yeah, there's a few things going on with the different categories and the different strategies and all of the traffic. And it's pretty close out there. Who have we got on screen right now? That's GTE cars, because it's the Porsches. 4th and 5th is this battle, Christopher Dambietz and Barry Morrison. That's a very close one, and I think we name dropped these guys earlier that they were in a close battle, so it hasn't resolved itself yet at all. They head up the hill. This is a big draft opportunity into that bus stop chicane.
Let's see if they're going to go for this thing. Go screaming in towards the bus stop. Look like things are going to get a little bit aggressive. Yannick's going to defend that ultra inside line and then try to drive it back across to the middle of the racetrack. Does a good job in doing so. Christopher not really able to do anything with that. Excuse me, that's Christopher. Barry Morrison, is the TBR car just behind. And they screen through the carousel and now in towards the laces here. They're going to have to stay single file. This Mercedes-Benz, I believe this is the Petit car that was just caught up in that incident. Indeed it is Michael Avdoka. He's going to force them to be relatively single file. Head now in towards the toe of the boot. Bushman car gets a little bit more optimal line through here, able to turn in that little bit later, but overall doesn't really change much as he goes screaming down towards the heel.
Yep, and we had a brief glimpse at in front of them where Scott Brazier and Yannick Lamshin are battling, and I think Yannick has gotten quite a little bit closer in that battle. In fact, it looks like he hasn't gotten through. I've gotten too excited there, but they've been split by one of those GT3 cars, which lets Scott Brazier get a little bit of a breather because Yannick Lamshin was getting so very close behind him. Now they go 3 wide down the front stretch with our 3 categories of cars, give a good demonstration with a prototype on the inside, GTE in the middle, and a GT3 on the outside. And they make contact there, wow.
Oh, little bit of contact, and that's going to send an Audi off in brown. That's going to be Win Stockman's. And another car, unfortunately, comes through, gets a part of that. I believe that was the Mercedes-Benz of Albel Apri. Oh, actually, no, who was that? That was James Jimenez, and I'm not really, excuse me, Juan Jimenez, who went through turn 1, seeing a yellow flag on his screen and smoke on the screen, and he went through turn 1 flat out. You know, really have to say, I don't think there's much Juan, you know, Juan can't really blame anyone but himself for that one. He just went in knowing that there was a car stopped, all the information in the world, just sort of plowed into a stopped car. It is one of those incidents that really does frustrate me. All the information that sim races are typically given, people will still just plow full speed into caution zones.
Yeah, there's a few ways to look at that one, Randy. I'm not sure I'm in 100% agreement, but hey, that might be racing when there's lots going on. On screen, that's P2 and P3 in our prototype field. Cy Andre is through on an Eric Andre, but you know, these two, does that mean it's done? Not at all, not at all. This will be on until the final corner and after that even, won't it, Randy?
But we're also talking through here, you mentioned getting a little bit of a margin here, of course, in that fight before we had that incident at turn 1. We just had a nice little margin opened up to Soren in this GT3 fight. James McRitchie has dropped off about a second and a half or so here. So for the number 30 car right now, he seems to be in a relatively good situation as we only have about 4, maybe 5 laps left in this race. And he's opened a gap right at the right time, and James pushing way wide at turn 1 is going to drop even more. So for James McRitchie, it looks like he's probably going to have to settle for P2 here unless someone makes some sort of mistake.
Yeah, he was right up there, 1 car length back, and now it's a bit further than that indeed. So that might be robbing us of a more exciting battle for the win in that GT3 field, because in our prototypes and in our GTEs, the leaders in those classes have gotten away just a little bit. So this was our hope for an exciting battle for the lead, but you know, plenty could still happen as we see, you know, another class car come through there. Is that Matty Cardosoja, our leader in GTLM? It's now splitting the leaders in GT3.
Yeah, that is indeed Matty Cardosoja getting those two, getting the first of them put in the rearview mirror. Scott Brazier will be the next GTE car to get through, and then of course Yannick Lamshin. That fight was of course close for a short time as well, but has spread itself out. Of course, with that traffic up ahead, could maybe stack it back up. Scott Brazier doesn't catch the traffic at an optimal time, but regardless, I think Scott Brazier is still in a very good situation right now, similar to Soren. Probably pretty comfortable feeling right now for P2.
Yep, indeed. So then I think the closest battle behind them in GTE is still going off for 4th and 5th with Christopher Dampitz and Barry Morrison, and in fact it is very close. Ooh, I'm not sure who even has the advantage here. It's one of those situations where, you know, do you actually want to be the lead car coming into the last lap? You might want to be just the car behind coming up through the S's and hopefully make a move through the bus stop.
It is one of the games that you play here at Watkins Glen, and it's almost like running a plate track in a stock car. Just, you want to have the slipstream at an optimal time. Up through the S's they come now. Porsche on Porsche. Let's see what is going to happen here. Is Barry Morrison in that Bushman car going to go for it? He's going to show the nose on the outside. So he wants to, I think, make the move here and set himself up maybe to get past next lap. But no, he's going to keep it behind here. Well, Barry Morrison, while trying to force Christopher into a mistake. And I actually like this, David, because when you're in that second spot, you can, up until the final lap, which is really the best point probably to make the move, assuming you don't make a mistake or whatnot, you can really harass that car out in front of you on that run down in towards the bus stop and potentially force a mistake. I think Christopher is really doing that, really optimizing that to the max right now, the way he's running this.
Yep, that's one of the games you play indeed, is that you just got to show your nose a little bit, have the other car thinking, you know, and let's go to P2 in Prototype, and I'll finish up that thought later, because Eric Andre, I think, has gotten back past Cy Andre, or whichever order they were in when we last looked. It's closer than it's been for a bit. As they come through one of the GT3 cars back there, well, it was a scary moment for one of them. They are nose to tail.
The P2 here in the Prototypes, very close. And remember, these guys have had a little bit of an incident earlier on. So for these two, they're probably going to be really aggressive with one another. Eric Andre, of course, has just picked that spot up over Syandra. So will Cy be able to get there, maybe make the move back, and then coming what should, I believe, potentially be the final. No, we're going to have 2 laps to go right here. So we are, I believe, going to go 28 laps. So for Syandra, works his way through and off the final corner, trying to keep the slipstream. Mercedes GT3 car ahead. Do not believe the white flag has been waved yet based on the race timer and the lap times. They head off now towards turn 1 for the penultimate time. Syandra's going to get actually a good run here and might be able to make the move up and towards the S's. Not going to be able to get it done here. This Mercedes-Benz just ahead of Michael Busch is going to make things relatively difficult. Through the S's, though, Syandra's going to stay tucked underneath that rear wing of that race clutch car. He is going to pull out in towards the braking zone. Not going to be able to get there, though. Nicely blocked by Andre. They scream through the bus stop chicane. Syandra loses just a little bit of time.
Yep, there was just a crucial lap car there that just, I think, Kevin Eric Andre, the space he needed to defend that corner and stay ahead, at least for this lap.
So through the toe of the boot, trying his hardest is an Eric Andre to defend this position. Fraser Williamson is pretty much out clear, though, and look at all the traffic these two are going to have to deal with. There is a absolute gaggle of GTE and GT3 cars, some of which are fighting for position, some of which are not, and are laps down. They are going to have to deal with on their final lap as they work through now the penultimate sector, the final sector of the lap. Quick left-hander. This is where the DP is going to carry so much more speed than these GT3 cars. And now off the final corner, white flag will be waving at the starter stand. And actually, Syandra has short-filled the car. I talked about that earlier, David, about expecting a 27-lap race and getting 28. Just happened to Syandra, and he has to hit pit road.
I was thinking exactly that, Randy. There might have been 5 or 6 seconds left on the clock when Fraser Williamson took that extra lap. And we said that earlier in the broadcast. You brought it up that a lot of these guys might have been expecting the race to go 27 laps, but it was just on the edge of being able to go 28. And that's caught out Cy Andre, and an Eric Andre will hold on to second place there. Robinson's of a little bit of a battle, but boy, is it exciting stuff.
It's also going to cut one short as Fraser Williamson on his final lap puts a lap on Christopher and Barry Morrison. That means they go from having 2 laps to go to having 1 lap to go, and I think that's going to also affect this fight up in front with James McRitchie and Soren Kolzich. So for James, if he was expecting 2 to go, he just saw the white flag pop up on his screen as Fraser Williamson cycles through. Soren Kolzich might just be able to eke out 1 last final lap, and that'll be an absolute gift given to him if he's able to do so. But regardless, actually, he's just been given a huge amount of time as McRitchie just drew the short straw on the traffic. But regardless, we're going to have a cluster of your race leaders here come off this final corner, the first of which will be the 21, Fraser Williamson, who has absolutely dominated this race, and he will win the Daytona Prototype field, as well as on the same stretch and in the same camera shot, Soren Kolzich in the GT3 field in that pink number 30 will take the win here as well. Other class leader of Matty Cardasoja, he's just starting his final lap and screaming down the back straightaway. And while the other 2 class leaders had all sorts of traffic, David, Matty Cardasoja just gets a nice solo hot lap to end the day.
Yep, I've heard about New York traffic, but it looked like all of it was on the front stretch there, and Matty Cardasoja has gotten himself, plenty of track all to himself, and he will not be under any pressure as he comes to finish his final lap to win that very, very fiercely competitive GTE category.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the situation, and with the way the traffic kind of bundled itself up there at the end, we don't really have any fights on track. I think Maddie might actually be one of the final cars still running. We also have Yannick Lampkin, who is P2 in class. Scott Brazier in P3 has already finished as well. So Matty Kitasoja coming through now, the last sequence of corners. 2 more left-handers and a right-hander for him. One of the most awkward ones he deals with right now, and one of the most fun ones, in my opinion, coming up. This penultimate left-hander is so fun in these GT cars. It's absolutely so fast, and the final one is quick as well. You have a Mercedes-Benz out of fuel. It's Yannick Mitchell, as Matty Kitasoja will come off that final corner and take victory here in the GTE field. And shortly behind him, Yannick Lampkin will take the checkered flag for P2. And with that, we will have your post-race results for the Friday primetime season opener, the IMSA Online Sports Car Championship. Let's go through it. Fraser Williamson takes the victory in the Daytona Prototype class with an Eric Andre in P2. Kim Salvinson in third, with Gabriel Ruse in fourth, Cyandra fifth, and Loic Giardello rounding out the top 5 in that category. Blake Neck in 6th, David Weiss in 7th, and Marco Acidiacano will round out the field there. GTE cars, Matty Kitasoja, he takes victory over Yannick Lampkin with Scott Brazier in 3rd, Christopher Dambietz in 4th, and Barry Morrison in the 5th spot. Tony Repisard in 6th, Cyril Rodriguez 7th, Bradley Haley in 8th, Kevin Siggy 9th, and Thomas Gibson rounds out your top 10. Alex Simonek, Caesar Froner, Bruno Fontalba, Lewis Goodway, Antiohola, and Thibaut Kazabon rounds out the field there. And then in GT3, it's Soren Koldervich who wins here with James McRitchie in 2nd, Abel Aparicio 3rd, Michael Evdoka in 4th, and Juan Gimenez round out the top 5. Michael Boysch, Roberto Rodriguez, Shane Burke, Yannick McKaylee, Lucas Campos, Wim Stockman, Stefan Engels, and Alejandro Ferrero rounds out the GT3 field. We are actually going to go through and start your post-race results right here, your post-race interviews right here, right now. And let's start it off with the race winner in the Daytona Prototypes, Fraser Williamson. Fraser from Team Bushfink Racing absolutely dominated this one. How easy peasy was it for you?
I wouldn't say easy peasy. It was just push as hard as you can and keep it in the track, which proved difficult in traffic.
You got relatively cool weather here today here at Watkins Glen, so the lap times were quick, and because of that, instead of I think getting the expected 27 laps, you got 28. Was this probably going to be the quickest weather you've seen all week, or have you seen 28 laps hit before this, and are you expecting to maybe if you do a race or two on the weekend?
You say that as if I've checked beforehand. I haven't got a clue. I would expect if there's somebody as fast as me in a race, this weather's common at Watkins, so who knows, but I'd expect it to happen more often, yeah.
Now, of course, the Sim Racing Expo happening this weekend means that a lot of names who you'd potentially expect to see in this series, some that would probably be in your class, I think most likely be in the GT field, are in Germany instead of racing here in the official. So here you take the victory here in week 1. Is it going to be as easy peasy for you when we get later on, or do you think this is probably going to be your only win of the season?
It's their fault for being in Germany and not racing. Who knows who'll turn up. Sai and Eric and David, they're all good DP drivers back when this used to get broadcast. They were the guys, so who knows, maybe Fabrice, some of the PRT guys will turn up, the new SMRC guys. If they all turn up, then this could be one of the best seasons we've had in the DP.
Well, thanks for joining us, Fraser. Before we let you go, who gets it done for you at TBR?
Just all the guys. Craig set up shop for helping with setups, and Pixel Dust designs for the paints.
There he was. Race winner Fraser Williamson brings home a big and dominant victory here tonight at Watkins Glen. We have another driver here joining us from the DP field. He's going to be stood by with David Haynes. That's going to be second place finisher and Eric Andre.
And Eric, second place in that prototype category. Do you think there was any chance you could have had the pace to get up there and fight Fraser for the win?
No, definitely not. Frasier was just flying on the track. At the start of the race, I think he was putting a gap of 1 second per lap. So he did a really, really good race. Impressive performance from him.
We saw you had some rather fierce door-to-door, side-by-side racing with Sayondra. Was that clean from your perspective, and was that enjoyable racing or stressful?
Clean, I don't know. Where sometimes I think over the limit, but we are both fair driver, so it was definitely a lot of fun. I was a bit sad that Sayondra had run out of fuel, because on the last lap we could have a great fight. But yeah, that was really nice. A lot of stress, as you said, but really enjoyable.
That was my next question, is at what point did you realise that we were going to go to 28 instead of 27 laps? And yeah.
I didn't really pay attention, but when I pitted and I had a 1.5 second gap over Sayondra, and I saw that he exited the pits in front of me, I found that a bit weird, because I thought that he might not put enough fuel. Yeah, that was quite the gamble. Is he gonna go to the end, or is he gonna pit at the last lap? I wasn't very sure of that, so I had to fight him, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess just on the last lap there, you got second place solidified. And, well, this is the first race of the season for Race Spot Prime Time. Are we going to see you back again for the rest of the season?
Yeah, definitely. I will try to fight for the championship. There will be a lot of good drivers in the DP, which is sometimes very underestimated, because there's a lot of good drivers in there. It's maybe not as strong as the GTE field, but we definitely have a lot of talented guys in the prototype class.
Well, good racing. Congratulations on second place. Who do you need to thank on behalf of yourself and your team?
Well, obviously you guys for the coverage. I need to thank also Gamble Simage for the sponsor, and Klim, which is partnering with us for the Sim Expo. And I'm also hoping, saying good luck to my teammates that will race tomorrow at the Sim Expo.
Awesome, thank you for coming in, and hopefully we'll see you again next week.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Back to you, Randy, because I think we might have one more person.
Yep, we have one more, and while Fraser and Eric, had the fuel to make it, Sayondra did not. I'm sure you had a sigh of disappointment when you saw that white flag, instead of waving on lap 27, waved on lap 28. Sai, you there?
I'm here. Sorry, you can thank AT&T for that little stutter.
Nice. So did you hear the question, or?
I heard vaguely something about lap 27.
How frustrated were you when you saw that white flag came out on lap 28, not 27? Or when you came through expecting the white, I'm sure, and then realizing you wouldn't have the fuel.
I think I cursed Fraser out that entire lap. I think, yeah, I was honestly kind of shocked, because I didn't think he was he was far enough ahead to not get the white flag at the line. I don't know how close it was, but it only could have been a few seconds.
Yeah, it was. I think it was about 20. I think he was clear. So it was relatively tight. We were a little bit skeptical in the booth, but we did talk about that with the weather. Was that something you had even thought about? Because it was a very, very cool weather, of course. 77-degree track temp. It was a little bit warmer, I think, at the beginning of the race, but very cool race in general. Was that even something you potentially thought of could happen, or was it not even close to your frame of mind?
It was in my mind when I saw the track temp, but once the race started, it kind of just, I was in traffic trying to gain all the spots I lost on the first lap, so that thought was just nowhere near. And then I decided to take the exact amount of fuel I needed to try and hop second place in the pits. That worked out, but obviously didn't put enough fuel in it.
Thanks for joining us, Sai. Unfortunate for you and the sort of short straw that you drew tonight. Before we let you go, who gets it done for you guys at that relatively new team, Wyvern?
Well, my whole team, Alex, Giuliano, all those guys, they helped me put the team together and run it with all that stuff, and that's about it, really. I mean, it's a small team. We're trying to get bigger, and hey, if you want to drive prototypes, come join.
There it is. If you want to drive some Daytona Prototypes and probably be a lap short on fuel, go join Wyvern. But thanks for joining us, Si. Good luck to you later on this series. I know you'll be in the DP pretty regularly.
Thank you.
Well, there it was, David. It was an interesting race here at Watkins Glen. Sort of had everything. You had the sort of inoptimal suspension setup issues down at the bus stop. You had the draft issues going down in towards the bus stop. Some awkward moments through and through as well. Overall, kind of your typical 45-minute Watkins Glen multi-class sprint race.
Yeah, exactly. We had everything. We had dealing with traffic, we had on-track battles, we had strategy battles, which worked in the favor of an Eric Andre and against Cy Andra this time. Who knows about next time? But I guess I'm looking forward to this every Friday Race Spot Primetime with the IMSA series.
Yep, I am as well. Friday night primetime is going to be really, really exciting, and I think much to chat's joy, they will find that it will not, I think, typically might be myself and David Haynes. We are just a stand-in crew for this week. I think you'll have your usual Friday night primetime group when they get back from this little thing known as the Sim Racing Expo at Germany, and of course you can catch the streams for that everywhere else. But regardless, we are going to close this out here on RaceSpot TV. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for tuning in. We have 2 more shows for you coming up this weekend. The Logical Classic IndyCar Series be coming up on Sunday, as well as the McLaren Shadow Race round 1 from Brands Hatch. That'll be the first round actually in that MP4 12C in the GT cars. So until then, we thank you for joining us, and we hope you tune in the future. Bye-bye.